Hey guys, tonight we slipped back into a time when the world didn't yet know it was doomed. You're in a quiet, early spring morning in the year 1346, somewhere in the countryside of Europe. You trudge slowly down a muddy path between small villages that look like they've been here forever, because, well, they sort of have. Life is slow, predictable, boring in that oddly comforting way. The cows moo lazily in the distance. A church bell rings, probably late, because the monk responsible for it is already halfway into his mead for the day. You step carefully to avoid a particularly aggressive pile of something suspiciously warm and squishy. Nature smells like damp wool, dung, and sour ale. You pass a sleepy blacksmith hammering at horseshoes. A baker's boy offers you yesterday's loaf, mildly edible, if you dunk it in wine. And your biggest worry today, whether you'll catch fleas again from sleeping on straw. You have no idea that the most catastrophic biological event in human history is already moving toward you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where you're all listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. See back. In your mud-caked boots, you're not particularly curious about world news. There's no Twitter, no newspapers, just gossip that moves at the speed of a donkey cart. So when the rumors start about something strange, happening far away, something about people dying very quickly, you mostly roll your eyes. Everyone's always dying quickly. That's medieval life. Step on a nail, get a rash, forget to boil your water dead. Happens all the time. But this will be different, because somewhere along the Silk Road, a merchant sneezed. Historians still argue whether the plague's true origin was China, Central Asia, or somewhere in between. But what they agree on is that trade routes, bustling, with goods and humans and disease-ridden rodents, turned into death corridors. You don't see it yet in your sleepy corner of Europe. Not yet. But over the next few weeks, the air gets uneasy. People pass through your village with eyes darting, talking too fast. They speak of ports closing, of sailors collapsing mid-step, of entire households locking themselves in and never unlocking again. Still, it's far away, right? You go about your day. You harvest root vegetables. You complain about taxes to a goat. You might even attend a fair where someone gets a little too excited about a jug of cider and dances directly into the pig pen. Standard Tuesday. But the clergy starts acting odd. A priest coughs in the middle of Mass and goes pale. He cancels the next sermon. That never happens. Monks stop copying manuscripts and start muttering more than usual. Even the rats seem jittery, which should worry you more than it does. In the evening, you sit by the fire with your family. The embers glow orange against the timber walls, and smoke curls around your tired eyes. You listen as someone retells a story from the next town over about a family who buried 5 members in 2 days. You shake your head and mutter something about exaggeration. Everyone always knows someone who saw something once. Then someone sneezes. That soft, human sound, the kind you've heard every day of your life, suddenly feels like a death knell. You all go quiet. You try to joke it off. Probably just the fire smoke. No one laughs. You go to bed with that tight feeling in your chest, the one you get when a storm is coming, and the air presses on your lungs like a full wineskin. Dream of strange things, of wagons filled with bodies, of skeletal hands reaching through your window, of crows that won't stop cawing. When you wake up, the world feels smaller, like it's starting to fold in on itself. And just for flavor, did you know medieval Europeans believed in a thing called miasma? Essentially bad air that could make you sick. That's why you'll soon see people carrying herbs, or holding oranges pierced with cloves, or even wearing full-on perfumed masks. But that's a few weeks down the line. For now, the wind still smells like wood smoke and cow. The trees are still blooming. The birds are still chirping. The world seems normal, but it's not. Not anymore. Somewhere perhaps on a Genoese trading ship, rocking gently in the harbor of Cafarets, are already gnawing at rope. and fleas are hungrily hopping from one warm mammal to the next. And each hop is a time bomb. The calm before the plague doesn't feel like fear. It feels like routine, like repeating chores, dull aches, and the mild frustration of communal living. It's only in hindsight, when the air grows too still, when the streets get too quiet, that you'll realize how much was lost in the days you took for granted. You're going to miss boring. The ships are what do it. You're standing on the docks of Messina, Sicily. It's 1347 now. The breeze smells like salt, brine, and fish guts left too long in the sun. You shield your eyes as a fleet of Genoese merchant ships coasts into the harbor, their sails slack and hulls groaning. Normally this would be good news, fresh goods, rare fabrics, maybe even something exciting like peppercorn or dyed silks from the east. But this time, the town watch looks confused. No sailors shout greetings. No barrels roll down gangplanks. The ships seem quiet. Too quiet. You step closer, and then you see it. A crewman collapses on deck, limbs twitching. Another slumps against the mast, motionless. Some ships don't even bother to dock, they just drift, eerily silent, like floating coffins. Still, people swarm the port. Curiosity's a hard thing to kill. The townsfolk whisper, then shout. Something's very wrong. By the time the authorities order the ships to be turned away, it's already too late. Those ships had traveled from Kaffa, on the Black Sea. Historians still argue whether a Mongol siege catapulted plague-infested corpses over the city walls as a form of biological warfare. Yes, medieval biowarfare was a thing, apparently. But what's certain is that the ships carried rats, and the rats carried fleas, and the fleas carried something utterly indifferent to your existence. Yersinia pestis. You can't see it, of course. No one can, but it's already on you, not metaphorically, literally. Tiny flea legs brushing against your skin, leaving behind invisible death. And the worst part, you think you're fine. For now, that night, the town erupts. People fall ill in their homes. The local baker doesn't open his shutters. A fruit vendor dies face down in her cart. At first, people suspect spoiled food, or maybe a curse. But then the black swellings appear. Under the arms, in the groin. Painful, egg-sized lumps. They ooze, they darken, they burst. People scream in the streets, clawing at their own skin, begging for mercy, or medicine, or both. You try not to breathe too deeply. The term Black Death won't come around for another few centuries. Right now, people just call it the pestilence, or the Great Mortality. If they're polite. If they're not, it's God's punishment. Or worse, the devil's breath. Within days, the docks are silent again, not from calm, but from grief. The ships, they vanish overnight. Some burned, some set adrift, some stolen by desperate survivors hoping to escape. The irony, of course, is that those who flee spread the disease faster. You help unload one barrel of spice from a half-abandoned vessel. That simple action, grabbing the wood, brushing a rat aside, might be the worst mistake you'll ever make. No fever yet, but it's coming. You retreat inland, hoping the countryside will be safer. But you're not alone. Entire families flee the ports. Roads clog with carts and confusion. Inns overflow. Monks recite prayers on the move. People wear sprigs of rosemary behind their ears, or tuck lavender into their cloaks, believing the sweet scent will keep them safe. Spoiler, it won't. But here's something odd. Not everyone dies. In fact, some people poorly dressed, barely fed, sneezing all over the place, just get better. Historians still puzzle over this. Immunity, genetics, sheer dumb luck, whatever. The case, you start noticing that survival doesn't follow any pattern. Young or old, rich or poor, saint or scoundrel, rolls its dice without bias. Still, that doesn't stop the rumors. You overhear someone claiming the Jews poisoned the wells. Someone else says it's the planet Saturn aligning with Mars, or some astrological nonsense. Others blame cats, which leads to mass killings of cats, which ironically makes the rat problem worse. Humanity, consistently brilliant, and yet some people still try to make it business as usual. Markets stay open. Sort of. Priests hold mass. Kind of. One town even throws a festival to celebrate God's wrath being nearly spent. A week later, half of them are dead. The disease doesn't care about your schedule. Meanwhile, your own symptoms start creeping in. First, it's just fatigue. You feel it in your legs, dragging like someone filled your boots with stones. Then a fever mild at first, like walking in a too warm room. You dismiss it, keep moving, drink more wine. Pretend it's just a chill from the sea breeze. Denial's a hell of a drug. But the swelling arrives. A dark knot under your arm. You don't show anyone. Not yet. You wrap a cloth around it, say it's a bruise. Then another appears, and your breath gets shorter, and your vision fuzzes at the edges. You sit down to rest just for a moment, and you notice something terrifying. You're not the only one on this bench. For others sit beside you, staring into space, breathing shallowly, quietly moaning. One of them slumps forward, doesn't move again. The others don't even flinch. It's like watching time pause, and you're stuck in the middle of it. There's no treatment, not really. Some apothecaries offer potions made from crushed emeralds or ground toads. One recipe involves powdered unicorn horn. Guess how well that works? Others recommend bloodletting, but considering how dehydrated you already are, that's just adding insult to injury. The only thing anyone can agree on: pray a lot, preferably loudly. By now, your town has sealed itself off. No visitors, no trade. The gates close at dusk and don't reopen. But the fleas, they're already inside. You scratch your neck absent-mindedly and feel another bite. The plague has arrived, and it's not leaving anytime soon. You wake to the sound of something skittering across the thatch above your head. Probably just a rat. Probably several. You don't even bother reacting anymore. The scurrying is constant now behind the walls, under the floorboards, in the rafters. It's like the house itself is alive with tiny, scratching legs. You've grown used to it, which is perhaps the most disturbing part of all. Still, you sit up slowly. You're sweating again. Your tunic clings to your skin. The fever comes and goes in waves, and you've started counting them like the tides. But it's not just the heat you're itchy, deeply, maddeningly itchy. Not in a dry skin way. More like something is crawling all over you. And of course, something is fleas. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, hiding in the seams of your clothes, your bedding, your hair. They came in on the rats, and they're not picky. They'll bite anyone. What you don't realize is that some of those fleas are infected, and when they bite you, they do something far more sinister than just make you scratch. They regurgitate plague. Bacteria directly into your bloodstream. Yes, regurgitate, that's how. Yersinia pestis makes its entrance through flea vomit. Sleep tight. You make it outside and breathe the cool morning air. It doesn't help. You're dizzy now. Your legs feel like half-cooked noodles. You reach up and touch the lump under your arm. It's bigger, hot to the touch. Your fingers come. Away damp. The smell hits a second later. Sweet and rotten, and unmistakably wrong. You don't need a priest to tell you you're in trouble. Your body already knows. And here's the twisted thing. You're not alone. People are starting to fall in clusters now. Entire households sick within days. Streets unusually quiet, punctuated only by the occasional sob or scream. The town crier has gone silent. The baker's shop has stayed shut for a week. The tavern no longer spills out drunken laughter. Even the pigs are nervous. Historians still argue whether fleas or direct contact was the main driver of early transmission. Some say the bubonic strain spread through fleas and bites. Others argue that in the later waves, it went pneumonic or born-making. It's far more terrifying. Either way, you don't care about the science. You care that the boy next door was fine yesterday, and is now laid out in a shroud. People stop visiting each other. Doors are marked with chalked crosses. Some families nail boards across their own entrances from the inside. Better to die together than risk stepping out. The priests still try to help, kind of. They walk through the streets, ringing bells, murmuring prayers, and offering last rites at a distance. Some brave ones enter the sick houses, but not many return. Some monasteries close their gates entirely, hiding behind stone in silence. You catch one monk fleeing in the middle of the night, robes flying, eyes wild. He trips over a chicken and keeps running. Medical help. The town barber is technically your physician. His tools include a razor, a saw, and some vague advice about balancing your humors. His go-to cure is cutting you open and draining a pint or two of blood because, obviously, you're suffering from an excessive wetness. Also, side note, people still believed in the four humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Your illness is, according to this theory, just your body throwing a tantrum over imbalanced fluids. So naturally leeches, so many leeches, but you're not headed to the barber. You're headed to the apothecary, or what's left of him. His shop is dark, half-looted, and reeks of crushed herbs and human sweat. You find a bottle labeled Elixir of Hope. Smells like feet and fennel. You drink it anyway. Desperation tastes bitter. As you limp back to your home, you pass someone you knew well. A neighbor, let's call her Anna. She doesn't recognize you. Or maybe she does, but chooses not to react. Her face is sunken, her eyes yellowed. Her hands tremble as she clutches a rosary so tightly her knuckles go white. She mouths a prayer, on repeat, like it's the only thing keeping her tethered to this side of existence. You try to speak to her, but your voice comes out like gravel. She flinches and steps away. You see fear in her eyes, but not just fear of the plague. Fear of you, because here's the new truth. The sick are monsters now. You are the thing people run from. You are the shadow creeping closer. And the itch, the swelling, the sweat, all of it, marks you as untouchable. Even friends start leaving. Food at your doorstep, instead of coming inside. You are a house-shaped coffin. Yet, somehow, you're still standing. For now. Later, curled up in bed, with your head throbbing and your fingers twitching from fever, you hear scratching again. Not from rats this time, from outside. Someone's carving something into your door. You crawl to the entry and peek through. A crack, a chalk mark, a red X dot. The mark of plague. Your house is now officially contaminated. No visitors, no help. No one is coming. You're on your own. And still, just to twist the knife, the fleas remain, constant, merciless, like a tiny, itchy choir, singing death's lullaby. You scratch, you sweat. You wait, the worst part. This is only the beginning. You don't notice at first. Not when your neighbor's door swings open and stays open for 2 days. Not when the alley dog disappears. Not even when the bread stand is empty for the 4th morning in a row. But then, one afternoon, you walk past the town square and realize something's wrong with the quiet. It's too quiet. Like the silence has weight. And then, someone coughs. Not the kind of polite, covered-up sort you might hear in church. This one's wet, rattling, deep in the chest, like someone is trying to exhale their lungs in one final protest. You turn, and it's the blacksmith's apprentice, the boy who used to sing terribly off-key while hammering nails. His face is pale, lips tinged with blue. He coughs again, and this time, there's blood. Thick, dark red, sprayed across the cobblestones. You flinch, step back instinctively, too late. You are standing close. Maybe too close. This is the moment the plague changes. The coughing marks a shift from the classic bubonic form, which lingers in swellings, to something faster, crueler, pneumonic plague. No need for fleas now. It travels by air. One cough, one breath, and you've joined the party. Historians still debate when the plague mutated into its pneumonic form. Some claim it happened simultaneously across different regions. Others argue it was a separate wave, more dangerous, more lethal. Either way, you're in it now. And so is everyone you've ever known. That day, you see your first death cart. It's nothing fancy. A wooden wagon, pulled by a groaning mule, and stacked with what you hope are just sacks. They're not. Limbs poke out from under stained blankets. A foot, stiff and gray. Hair matted with blood. A smell that doesn't quite leave your nose, even hours later. A monk walks beside the cart, ringing a small bell. "Bring out your dead," he mutters. He doesn't shout it. He doesn't need to. You pass 3 such carts before noon. By dusk, there are 6. The town doesn't hold funerals anymore. There aren't enough priests, not enough coffins, not even enough gravediggers. You overhear someone say, "We've started stacking them." You pretend not to hear. You don't ask what they mean by them. And yet the coughing doesn't stop. Every corner you turn reveals someone else bent over, gasping, hacking red into handkerchiefs. Mothers collapse over cradles. Young men crumple on their way to the tavern. Children sit motionless by wells, too tired to cry. You begin to dread the sound of breathing. It's always either too fast, too labored, or too final. One morning, you venture out to check on an old woman who lives near the chapel. You've always liked her. She once gave you a turnip and called it a gift. You knock on her door. No answer. You try the latch. Inside, it's dark and stifling. She's there, in the corner, still upright in her chair, eyes wide, mouth frozen mid-prayer. Around her neck is a string of beads, clenched so tightly in her fingers you'd need a crowbar to pry them free. She never made a sound. You walk back home in a daze, blinking too slowly, unsure if the dizziness is grief or fever. A few more days pass. You stop counting. The coughing, once background noise, becomes the whole soundtrack of your days and nights. It echoes through stone walls, over rooftops, between empty alleyways. It's like the town itself is dying and letting you hear every labored breath. People try all kinds of things to stop it. Burning incense, drinking vinegar, wearing damp cloths over their mouths. One man wears a dead pigeon around his neck, claiming the bird will absorb the illness. You smile at that, but only with your eyes. Smiling with your mouth feels dangerous now too exposed. Some people simply disappear. Not into the woods, not into the mountains. They just vanish. Their doors left swinging open, their homes untouched. Maybe they went willingly, maybe not. And you start sleeping less. Every cough in the distance jerks you awake. You wake up with sweat down your back, your mouth dry, heart pounding. Sometimes you dream you're coughing blood. Sometimes you wake up to find you actually are. One morning, you find yourself walking out into the street in a haze. You're not sure why. The sun is rising. A few others stand around, equally dazed. One of them sneezes violently into a rag, drops to one knee, then just stays there. No one helps him, not out of cruelty, out of caution. What can you do? You stare at your hands and notice the small spots appearing purple, red, angry little blooms under the skin. You know what they mean. You've seen them before. You saw them on Anna. You saw them on the blacksmith's boy. Now they're on you. You return home, slowly, methodically, wash your hands, strip off your clothes, sit by the hearth, even though the fire's out. You stay there for hours, waiting. The coughing begins just after midnight. You don't even try to hide it. It's been 2 days since the coughing started. Your throat feels like it's lined with sand. Every breath scrapes. Each cough rattles from somewhere too deep, like something is trying to climb out of your lungs with claws. You lie on a straw mattress that now smells like sweat and vinegar. The fever won't break. Your skin is flushed one moment, icy the next. The lump under your arm has turned black, and so has your sense of humor. Across the room, a small mirror hangs crookedly on the wall. You glance at it, half curious, half horrified. What looks back at you isn't someone dying. It's someone changed, hollowed out. Your eyes are ringed and bruised purple, your lips cracked, your skin pale and sunken, like old parchment left out in the rain. But you're not alone. This morning, something peculiar happened. A figure passed by your window, tall, cloaked in black, face hidden beneath a bird-like beaked mask. The shape of nightmares, really. But this isn't a dream. This is a doctor. Or rather, a plague doctor. The mask is stuffed with herbs and petals, lavender, mint, cloves. Supposedly it keeps out the miasma, the bad air. You'd laugh if your lungs weren't full of blood. The outfit is more superstition than science, but it offers a sliver of hope to the terrified, or at least, distance. Think of him as the medieval version of a hazmat suit, only less effective, and much more ominous. You muster the strength to knock on the window. He glances your way, nods, doesn't enter. He scribbles something on a scrap of parchment, tucks it into the crack of your door, and moves on to the next house. You crawl over and fetch the note. It's simple. 3 words. Prepare your soul. Well, that's encouraging. Historians still debate how much plague doctors actually helped. Some tried bleeding patients. Others made poultices from onions, crushed emeralds, or ground up frogs. A few simply catalogued the sick and tallied the dead walking clipboards in bird disguise. But their presence alone sparked a strange comfort. Like death had a protocol, a schedule, a uniform. You lie back down and close your eyes. The herbs you burned earlier fill the room with the sharp scent of rosemary and fear. Outside, bells toll. The death bells, as they're called now. You used to associate bells with weddings, with church, with market days. Now they toll every hour. Sometimes more. There's movement in the house. You open your eyes. Your cousin has come to check on you. She doesn't come in fully. Just stands in the doorway with a scarf over her face and her arms held tightly against her chest. Her eyes are red-rimmed. She's trying not to cry. Or breathe. You manage a whisper. You smell like soup. She laughs. Not because it's funny, but because grief and humor always huddle together in moments like this. She leaves a bowl on the floor just inside the room, then retreats without a word. The door clicks shut behind her. You stare at the soup. It stares back. You've heard rumors, whispers, relayed that some people do recover. Not many, but enough to keep the hope burning. Enough to tempt you into trying another spoonful. One man apparently bathed in vinegar 3 times a day and lived. Another covered himself in butter. That didn't end well. But hey, points for creativity. A traveling healer supposedly invented a plague mask of waxed cloth and fish oil. You wonder if he's still alive. You wonder if anyone who saw that idea actually tried it. You wonder if maybe you should have. But that's the funny thing about desperation. It always arrives too late, dragging behind it the ghosts of things you could have done earlier. You doze again, drifting in and out of fever dreams. In one, you're walking through a field full of skeletons who politely tip their hats as you pass. In another, a rat offers you a cup of wine and says, "It's your turn now." You don't remember if you drank it. Even in sleep, you're aware of the coughing. Other houses, other lives. You hear someone shout, "Take the child first," then sobbing. Then nothing. Eventually, night falls. The fire has gone out. The room is cold now, but your forehead still burns. You sit up slowly, pulling the blanket tighter around you. The coughing has lessened. You're not sure if that's good or bad. Maybe you're getting better. Maybe you're just running out of breath. You try to pray. The words don't come. So instead, you hum something your mother used to sing. A lullaby from before the world turned dark. The melody is soft, off-key, but it makes the silence less sharp. A candle flickers. A rat skitters across the floor and vanishes beneath the table. You don't bother reacting. And then, suddenly, you realize you're still alive. Barely, weak, shaking, but alive. You curl up on the mattress and whisper to the darkness. Tomorrow, not a promise, not even a hope, just a question. Will there be one? You wake up somehow. The air is thick and smells like damp wool, old smoke, and something metallic that clings to the back of your tongue. Your mouth is dry, your lips cracked, and your whole body aches like you've been trampled by a cartload of turnips. But the fever is gone. Not gone like getting better. Gone like a wave that's already crashed and left. Everything's soaked and broken. You're alive, which is inconvenient. Because now, you have to deal with what's left. You rise slowly. Your joints creak, like an old windmill. There's still no fire. And the windows cracked open just enough to let in a pale, gray sliver of light. The world smells like wet ash. You shuffle to the doorway and glance outside. No one. Not it's early. No one. Not it's raining. No one. Just absence. Doors are ajar. Laundry still hangs stiff on lines, unmoved for days. The cart has been overturned in the street, its apples half-rotten, picked at by crows, who barely bother to flee as you approach. You walk slowly through the village. It feels like trespassing. And then you see them. A procession, not the joyful kind, not a wedding, not a festival. They're flagellants. A ragged group of men, barefoot, stripped to the waist, walking slowly and rhythmically through the muck. Each one whipping himself across the back with cords or knotted ropes. The sound is wet. Slap, slap, slap. Some chant Latin prayers. Others mutter, teeth clenched. A few have faces so wide-eyed. You suspect the plague isn't the only thing loosening their grip on reality. They believe this will stop the sickness. That by punishing their bodies, they're redeeming their souls. And maybe yours, too. Historians still argue whether these movements actually spread the plague faster by dragging infected people across borders. Some towns welcomed them. Others banned them entirely. You duck behind a shuttered stall and watch as they pass, leaving behind streaks of blood and uneasy silence. One man collapses mid-whip. No one stops. Your stomach churns, not from illness, from dread. You turn down an alley where the candlemaker used to sell wax-stubbed prayers. Her stand is gone. In its place, chalk drawings on the wall. Angels with crooked wings. Stick figures. A house marked with red X's. Beside it, scrawled in a child's uneven hand, "Please take my mama." You keep walking. Farther on, the priest is preaching in the square. Alone. No congregation, just birds and fog. His voice cracks with strain, but he keeps going, speaking to the empty air. The Lord tests us not to destroy, but to purify. You know he doesn't believe that. Not really. Not anymore. Not after burying half his parish and hearing confessions through locked doors. You watch him for a moment, then move on. The sermon isn't for you. It's for the silence. Eventually, you find yourself near the old mill. A dog sits outside, waiting. Its tail thumps weakly as you approach. You recognize it. It used to belong to the Miller family. You knock gently on the door. No answer. You wait. You knock again. Then you push it open. Inside, everything is still. Bread dough sits in a bowl, never baked. A chair is tipped over. A book of Psalms lies face down on the floor. You don't go upstairs. You don't need to. The silence is answer enough. You feed the dog. He follows you home. Later that evening, you light the fire again. Slowly, with numb fingers and too much hesitation. The flames crackle and spit like they've forgotten how. You curl under a blanket, dog at your side, and stare at the flickering shadows. Your cousin hasn't come back. You find her scarf on the porch, rain-soaked and twisted into a knot. You don't ask questions anymore. You try to eat, but your appetite's gone. The soup from before is cold. You sip anyway. That night, you hear the flagellants again, somewhere far off. Their chants blend with the creaking trees and the distant toll of the death bell. But it's quieter now, not better, just less. That's the strangest part about surviving. Everyone talks about death. No one talks about what happens when you don't die. There's no party, no celebration, no revelation, just an aching body and too many memories. The world looks the same, but your eyes have changed. The color's been leached out of everything, like someone washed the world in ash water, and yet tomorrow, you'll have to check the neighbor's house, bury the bodies in the side field, feed the animals, boil the linens, find more candles. There's work to do, and you're still here. The dead are now too many to name. At first you knew each face, each story. You remembered who liked plum wine, who had a crooked laugh, who always walked too fast, like they were late for something even when they weren't. But now, the corpses come faster than your memory can keep up with. You help dig the graves. It's not noble. It's not ceremonial. It's exhausting, muddy, and horrifying. The soil is heavy with recent rain, and the shovels are dull from overuse. There are too few of you left to dig individual plots, so you've turned to trenches. Long, shallow furrows in the earth that fill like broken teeth with bodies wrapped in sheets or nothing at all. You try not to look at their faces. Sometimes you catch a glimpse of someone you knew, a merchant, a shepherd girl, a man who once gave you a particularly bad haircut, and your breath catches. You pretend it's just the cold. There are no bells anymore, no priests. The last one stopped coming after his third fainting spell. You buried him last week. Now the burial teams are just whoever can still stand. You, the blacksmith's widow, a boy of 11 with hollow eyes, and a man who says nothing but digs like he's punishing the earth. You share no names. There's no point. You pass one of the carts on its way back from town creaking under the weight of its cargo. A few bodies tumble off the side as it turns a corner. No one stops. You don't even flinch. This is normal. Now, historians estimate that in some towns, as much as 60 to 70% of the population perished within a year. Some villages ceased to exist entirely. Every soul, gone, erased. You're starting to wonder if your town will be one of them. Quirky side. Note: in some cities, people paid to have perfumed gloves nailed to their doorposts, hoping the scent would scare the plague away. That didn't work. Nothing did. But you admire the creativity. You return home with dirt under your nails, and the smell of decay lingering behind your ears. You boil your clothes. You scrub your hands until your skin splits. You whisper apologies to no one. The nights are worse. You try to sleep, but the silence is too loud. You hear phantom knocks, imagined coughing, the creak of doors in the wind. You wake often, heart racing, convinced someone is standing over you. But it's just the dog, or the wind, or your own guilt. Sometimes, you hear wailing, not sobbing wailing, from deep in the woods, or maybe the far edge of town. You never check. You don't want to know what's out there anymore. It's not wolves. Wolves you can reason with. One morning, you find a child on your doorstep. Alive, barely. She's no more than 5. With tangled hair and dirt-streaked cheeks. She doesn't speak. She won't make eye contact. Just stares at your feet like they might vanish. She holds a ragged doll missing an arm, and clutches it so tightly her knuckles have turned white. You bring her inside. You feed her. She doesn't eat much. Just stares at the fire and blinks slowly, like someone pulled the world out from under her and she's still falling. You don't ask her name. She doesn't offer one. So you call her Little Belle, because she makes no sound, but she shakes sometimes like something in her is trying to ring out. You let her stay. She follows you silently when you go to dig. She holds the end of the rope when you lower another body into the pit. She doesn't cry, not even when you bury what looks suspiciously like her mother. Jess clenches her jaw and turns away. One day, the man who never spoke finally does. He says, "I buried my wife, then my sons, then my neighbors, then I just kept digging." You nod. There's nothing else to say. You hear a rumor faint, silly, hopeful that the plague is slowing down in the next town over, that people are recovering, that markets are reopening, that there's music again. You don't believe it, but you keep the idea tucked away like a secret coin. You remember how it used to be. Fairs in spring, candlelight spilling out of taverns, children racing wooden hoops down the street. That world feels like a dream now, like you read about it in a book and forgot the ending. You go to sleep next to the fire. Little Belle sleeps beside you, her small hand tangled in your sleeve. The dog snores softly, curled against your feet. You're still alive. That used to be a given. Now it feels like a miracle. The fog doesn't lift for days. It clings to the trees, drapes across rooftops, and seeps into your bones until you feel like your soul has grown damp. You wake each morning to a world muffled in gray, where even sound seems hesitant. No birds, no wind, just the occasional creak of something shifting. Forgotten, you get used to the silence. You even begin to find comfort in it. The dog trots ahead of you as you walk toward the riverbank. Little Belle trailing behind, silent as ever. You're not looking for anything in particular, just movement, the rhythm of walking, the illusion of progress. The river's low, murky. It smells like old iron and rotting leaves. You sit on the bank and toss in a pebble. It splashes, then disappears. For a moment, you imagine what it would be like to just walk in. Let the water take you. Let the current decide. But then Little Belle places something in your lap. It's a flower, wilted, missing half its petals. You don't recognize the type. Probably just a weed. But she found it, and picked it, and offered it like it meant something. You smile. A real one this time, crooked, but honest. Historians still debate the psychological toll of the plague on survivors. Some claim mass trauma reshaped European society for generations. Others argue that people bounced back faster than you'd think, because hardship was already woven into everyday life. But in moments like this, holding a flower from a girl who's forgotten how to speak, who realized that trauma doesn't always leave in grand gestures. Sometimes, it just sits quietly in your chest, reshaping how you breathe. You start noticing new things. Tiny things. A patch of moss on the stone wall that seems greener than usual. The way the clouds part, briefly, to let in a shaft of pale sunlight. The sound of water dripping steadily from a broken gutter. Life. Hiding in corners. One afternoon you pass the old chapel and find someone singing inside. You stop at the door. The voice is cracked and thin, but steady. A hymn. Latin. Familiar. You listen, unmoving, until the last note fades. You don't see who it is. You don't need to. It's enough to know that someone remembered a song. You return home that night and light 2 candles instead of 1. You don't know why. Maybe for the dead, maybe for the living. Maybe just because the house feels less empty now. The next day, a traveler arrives. He's gaunt, dust-covered and limping, but alive. You offer him food. He offers news. Real news, not rumors whispered through locked doors. He says the cities are still suffering, but the countryside's growing quieter. In some regions, the carts have stopped rolling. In others, new markets are tentatively opening. Their stalls half empty but eager. And then he says something wild. In one village, people are dancing again, not joyously, not in celebration, but cautiously, slowly, as though testing the ground. Beneath their feet, unsure if it will hold. You ask if he's seen it himself. He smiles. I danced once, just a few steps. Then I stopped. Didn't want to tempt fate. You understand. Perfectly. Later, as the traveler sleeps near your hearth, you find yourself humming a tune. Not a hymn, something older, folkish, simple. You hum until little Belle taps your arm and nods in rhythm. She still doesn't speak, but she's listening. That night, you dream you're in a field, not of corpses, not of bones, but wildflowers, yellow, blue, white. They stretch across the horizon, waving in a warm breeze. You lie down in the middle and stare up at the clouds. There's no coughing, no bells, just the sound of bees and your own heartbeat. Steady as a drum, you wake to birdsong, real, unmistakable birdsong. You leap up and fling open the window. And there it is, a tiny brown bird on the fence, puffed up and singing like it's the only thing that matters. You laugh out loud. The sound surprises even you. Outside, you see a man chopping wood, another pulling weeds. A woman hangs laundry on a line that's finally full again. A child runs past, barefoot and laughing. Not many people, but people. The fog is lifting. You don't trust it yet. You still walk with one eye over your shoulder, still flinch at unexpected noises. But the dread has loosened its grip, and slowly, very slowly, the town begins to breathe again. You plant something in the yard. Maybe it's vegetables. Maybe it's just a stubborn weed. Doesn't matter. You water it anyway. Life, like rot, spreads in silence. The bells don't ring anymore. Not because everyone is gone, but because the bell ringer, Old Thomas, has arthritis now, and refuses to climb the tower. Let the birds ring their own bloody song, he mutters, when you offer to help. He smiles. Oh, and that's new. You hadn't seen anyone smile without guilt in weeks. The morning is warm, almost suspiciously so. You wake up not drenched in sweat or chilled to your spine, but just awake. The dog stretches beside you, tail thumping gently. Little Belle snores softly under a wool blanket that's 2 sizes too big. It smells like rosemary and vinegar, your best guess at a cleansing agent these days. You don't bother correcting it. You step outside and find the blacksmith's widow scrubbing the chapel steps. She waves. You wave back. Small gestures, like survivors peeking out from under a collapsed roof. There's no declaration, no official word that the plague has ended. But you feel it in the shift away. People stand a little taller, open their shutters a little wider. A few stalls are reopening. The tavern door swings open for the first time in months. You catch the scent of stew and hear the slosh of a cask being tapped. The town is slowly, awkwardly, remembering how to live. Historians still argue over when the first wave of the plague officially ended. Some mark it by the drop in death rates, others by economic recovery. But to the people who lived it, people like you, it wasn't about numbers. It was about walking past a house and seeing someone light a candle, not for mourning, but for cooking. It was about hearing laughter that wasn't tinged with madness, and yet, you carry the plague with you. Not in your lungs, not anymore, but in your eyes. In the way you flinch when someone coughs. In the dreams that still come, dreams of trench graves and beaked masks and chalk marks smeared by rain. Trauma doesn't vanish just because the world decides it's safe again. It lingers like smoke after a fire, curling into the corners of your thoughts. You spend your afternoons helping repair roofs, patching holes that rats once slipped through. The dog follows you from job to job like a self-appointed supervisor. Little Belle starts speaking in fragment single words, mostly water. Here, no, it's not much, but it's something. One evening, she calls you by name. You don't correct her when she gets it wrong. You just smile and keep stirring the pot. The field behind the village is green again. Grass has returned over the trenches. A few wildflowers, too. You and a handful of others plant stakes at each end markers, in case anyone ever wants to know. Who's buried where? Most names are guesses. Some are symbols. A flower for a child. A bell for the priest. A blacksmith's hammer etched into wood. There's a strange comfort in it. People begin to talk about what happens next. Will the king send new tax collectors? Will the church hold a mass of thanksgiving? Will merchants return? You don't care much for politics, but the baker's returned, and her bread is terrible. And that feels like a promise. You hear music one evening, not a ghost, not a hallucination. Actual music. A lute, slightly out of tune. A reed pipe. A drum made from a soup pot and a wooden spoon. You follow the sound to the edge of the square, where 5 people are dancing. No audience, no applause. Just dancing awkward and slow, with steps that don't quite match. You stand at the edge and watch. Then you join. Your legs don't move quite right. Your arms feel heavier than they should. But you shuffle, spin, and sway. You remember steps from harvest dances years ago, and your body follows them before your brain does. Little Belle claps from the sidelines. The dog barks once, then rolls in the grass like it's too much effort to care. You don't dance for long, just a few minutes. But it's enough. Later, you sit around a fire with the dancers, passing a bottle of something that burns going down. No one talks about the dead. Not tonight. You share stories about stupid things. A cow that used to escape the pen and run into the chapel. A goat that wore a bonnet. You laugh until your ribs hurt, and someone says, "I thought we'd forgotten." How you smile. You had to. By the time you return home, the stars are out, clear and bright, like someone polished them. You sit on the steps and look up, your breath visible in the cool air. The plague took much, too much. But it didn't take this. The sky, the wind, the fire, the small human things. You hear someone singing in the distance, a lullaby. Maybe the same one your mother used to sing, maybe not. But it feels familiar. It feels safe. You let it carry you inside. You don't notice the weight you've been carrying until it starts to lift. It doesn't happen all at once. Grief doesn't evaporate like dew in the sun. But one morning, you realize you haven't checked your own pulse in days. You haven't bolted upright at a cough. You haven't sniffed your soup for signs of death. These are victories, now quiet ones. But real. Life tiptoes back like a cat that once ran away and isn't sure if it's welcome. Your days have rhythm again. Feed the dog, boil water. Help repair the roof of the bakery. Return home before dusk. Little Belle follows you, chattering now full sentences, even if most of them are about rocks and bread. She still clings to the armless doll. But she's started singing to it, off-key. Beautifully terrible. You find joy in the absurd things. Like when the town goose, freed from its coop, starts attacking your firewood pile for no reason. Or when someone tries to mend a fence using only string and optimism. Or when a traveling merchant arrives with wares no one needs: tin whistles, dried figs, a hat shaped like a fish hand, sells out by midday. You buy the hat, you wear it for an hour, you regret nothing. The plague hasn't vanished entirely. Every so often, someone from a neighboring village arrives with a warning or a tale. One woman swears the plague now targets only those who dance. Another insists it's moved into the wells. Avoid water, she whispers. Drink only wine. She is, notably, very drunk. Historians today remain divided on how many waves of plague truly occurred. Some cite 3 major outbreaks across Europe in the 14th century alone. Others argue that regional flares, years apart, felt like new disasters to the people who endured them. But for you, the idea of waves is too tidy. It didn't come in waves. It came like a tide that never receded, only shifted its hunger. There are still scars, physical and otherwise. Your left hand trembles when tired. A tooth aches constantly. Your sleep is dreamless, or too vivid, no in between. Sometimes you see the red chalk mark, plain as day, on the door of a house that no longer exists. The brain is funny like that, and yet, you manage. One morning, a boy passes through town, wearing fine shoes and no socks. He claims he's heading north, where the plague never touched. Clean air, he says. Clean people. He grins and tries to sell you a map he drew himself. It's mostly a squiggle and a tree. You give him bread instead. Travelers are coming more often now. Some peddling goods, others just seeking company. A few bring stories of entire regions, burn villages razed to the ground in the hopes of killing the sickness. Others speak of plague saints, folk heroes who survived and now wander from town to town with healing herbs and suspicious advice. One woman arrives, wearing a necklace made from garlic, lavender, and 3 mouse skulls. She insists she can cure any illness through song. You let her stay the night. She leaves in the morning, having traded one of her skulls for 2 eggs and a hug. The town holds a feast. Well, feast might be generous. It's mostly turnips, and broth, and a single, deeply questionable pie. But the table is long. People gather, they bring laughter. Someone plays a lute, badly. Children race each other barefoot. You make a toast, and no one shushes you. You look around and realize something odd. There are more young people now. The old were taken in terrible numbers, but the children, many of them survived. They run this place now, giggling through the ruins like weeds through cobblestone. It feels right. Little Belle stands on a stool and declares herself mayor of the chickens. No one disagrees. You've become, unintentionally, a kind of elder, a memory keeper. People ask you what it was like before. You tell them carefully, not everything, just enough. The baker's youngest asks why the stars look different now. You say, because we do. And it's true. Historians will one day write about this era, in terms of kings and maps and death tolls, but none of that will capture the smell of the burned fields, the heaviness of silence after the last cart passed, the sound of a candle crackling while someone tried not to cry. You live now in a new world. Not better, not worse, just changed, and you carry that change with you, in your voice, your eyes, your cautious laughter. One night, while tending your small garden, yes, the weed patch grew into something you'd see 2 fireflies hovering just above the soil. You call Little Belle too. Come watch. She squeals, chasing them with outstretched hands. She laughs so hard she falls over. You join her on the ground. Both of you giggling in the grass, the dog licking your ear like it's some sacred rite. Above you, the stars blink gently, familiar, patient. You're still here, still healing, and somehow still whole. You take up a kind of routine, again not the one from before, but one patched together from memory, invention, and necessity. Each day begins with fire, not just for warmth, but for comfort. You've come to appreciate the sound of logs splitting, the pop of sap, the way light from the hearth makes the room feel less hollow. Little Belle helps by feeding the dog bits of bread crust she hides in her sleeves. The dog pretends not to notice and plays along. Because everyone likes to feel useful. The village has stopped calling itself a village. Now it's a holding. Someone pinned up a notice with the word on it, though no one remembers writing it. It means little, but it sounds like something that won't blow away in the wind. And maybe that's enough. New people are trickling in. Survivors mostly. Some arrive alone, their eyes darting with the rhythm of people who've seen too much. Others come in small groups, relatives, clutching each other like lifelines. One family brings goats, another bees. The beekeeper wears a strange hood and insists bees are immune to plague. Not a single one coughed, he says with a grin that's a little too wide. You give him some bread and nod like you believe him. Historians still puzzle over how communities rebuilt so quickly after losing half or more of their people. Some suggest necessity spurred invention. Others believe those who lived were simply too stubborn to stop. You think it's both. You've seen a woman mend a wall using a door, a bucket, and part of a wagon wheel. You've also seen a child invent a game with one stick and 7 rocks that somehow ends in laughter. You begin to barter again. Your old clothes for eggs. Your help fixing a roof for a string of dried fish. One day, you trade 3 smooth stones, a handful of nails, and a carved whistle for a half loaf of honey bread. You could have cried when you tasted the sweetness. You nearly did. The market square, long silent, hums again. At first it's cautious just to stalls. Then 5. Then a dozen. People don't shout their wares anymore. Voices are softer now, respectful, but trade is trade. A man from the hills tries to sell plague-proof blankets. No one buys them, but they do buy his pickled carrots. You try not to notice the gaps. The corner, or the tanner, used to sing badly while curing hides. The bakery that burned down, its stone oven cracked like a broken tooth. The well where old Marcy used to gossip while drawing water. The silence there is heavier than most. One evening, you find yourself walking past the cemetery. The ground is uneven, scarred with too many hastily dug graves. You pause, not to mourn, exactly. Just to remember. A breeze rustles through the grass, and you swear, for a moment, it sounds like a whisper. But there's no fear in it, only familiarity. You start keeping a ledger, not of debts or supplies, but of people, who's returned, who's arrived, who laughed today, who cried, who needed bread, who gave away their last turnip because someone else had less. You don't know why you write these things down. Maybe for those who come after. Maybe just to prove you were here. Sometimes you find others have added to it small notes in different handwriting. Lena's baby said her first word. Mud. Goat fell off roof. Goat fine. Today felt like spring. It's a communal memory now, growing longer with each passing day. The seasons shift. You feel it first in the breeze. Less bitter, more mischievous. Then in the soil, which gives way more easily under your hands, plants begin to push through. Little green promises. You plant more. Little Belle helps, though she still confuses weeds for vegetables, and vice versa. The dog supervises. The garden becomes something sacred, not because it feeds you, but because it proves something can grow again. You hear about places farther away, towns that never reopened, cities that burned and didn't rebuild, but you also hear of others, rebuilt roads, restored bridges, a monastery where monks are now brewing plague-proof ale. You'd mock the idea, but you're dying to try some one morning. A stranger arrives on horseback. He's clean-shaven, wears boots with silver buckles, and speaks like someone who's read books with gold lettering. He claims to be a messenger of the crown. You offer him soup and watch him twitch as the dog sniffs his coat. He announces that tax records will be updated soon, and that survivors must report names and holdings to the regional steward. Everyone stares. You say nothing. He clears his throat, for rebuilding, of course. You nod slowly, then hand him a bowl of soup, too hot to sip. When he leaves the next day, someone whispers, "Don't tell him about the bees." That night, you and a few others gather under the stars. No fire, just the quiet warmth of shared breath and tired joy. Someone sings a lullaby. Little Belle joins in, wrong words and all. You close your eyes and let the song carry you, not away, just forward. It's strange how quickly you forget the terror once routine settles in. Not completely, no. The fear is still there, like dust in the corners of your thoughts. But it doesn't grip you anymore. It just lingers. A memory, dulled by distance. You rise with the sun now. There's too much to do for lying in bed. The fields are calling, the animals need feeding, and the walls always seem to need fixing. You've taken to carrying a small satchel of tools wherever you go. Rope, nails, bits of cloth, a whittled spoon you've yet to finish. People nod when they see you, not just politely, knowingly. You are, in a quiet way, one of the ones holding this patched-together place together. You didn't ask to be. But when everything falls apart, someone always has to step into the cracks. Little Belle walks beside you most mornings. She's taller now. Her voice is stronger, too, with that matter-of-fact tone only children can pull off. That house is crooked, she tells you, pointing to one with a sagging roof. We should fix it. You laugh. Add it to the list. The town, or whatever it is, now is changing. Old roads have turned into goat paths. New homes have risen where ash once lay. The fountain in the square works again, though only on odd days, and the water has a faint smell of onions no one can explain. Still, it flows. That's what matters. Someone paints signs. To market gives no trade here, yes. We have turnips sometimes. The signs are crooked and misspelled, but they cheer people up. Humor has returned in little puffs, like dandelions on the wind. People tease again. Smile without flinching. You even catch yourself humming while hammering in fence posts. There are newcomers, too. Not just survivors this time, but hopefuls. A traveling scribe looking for work. A woman with 3 children and a talent for pipe making. A quiet man who mends shoes with more care than anyone has ever mended. Shoes in the history of leather. They don't ask for much. Just a corner of land, a roof, a chance. You give them all 3. Where you can. Historians today try to measure the post-plague recovery in charts and numbers, grain prices. Labor surges, population rebounds. But that misses the small truths, like the way someone gifted a stranger their last candle, or how a community agreed to rebuild a barn together, not for money, but because the cows had nowhere else to sleep. One afternoon, you sit under a tree with a woman who claims she used to be a noble's cook. She tells wild stories of feasts so grand they had separate tables just for sauces, and of lords who believed basil prevented baldness. It didn't, she says, patting her own very bald head. You laugh so hard you choke on your bread. Evenings are calmer now. Fires burn for warmth, not for warding off spirits. Doors stay open longer. People linger on porches, telling stories or stringing beans. Sometimes, you gather in the square just to talk. No purpose, no agenda. Just the shared satisfaction of still being here. You begin keeping a calendar of sorts. Nothing fancy, just charcoal marks on a plank near the door. You count days, then weeks, then months, since the last funeral. The gaps grow wider. Eventually, you run out of space. You smile and start over. You find old letters while cleaning out a collapsed cottage. Most are unreadable. But one catches your eye, a scrap of parchment tucked inside a jar. It's addressed to whoever survives. It says, "If you find this, you're stronger than I was. I hope you plant something. I hope you sing. I hope the world still has birds." You copy the message on your wall, and then you hang a small wooden bird beside it, carved from the remnants of a bedpost. You don't know why, it just feels right. Little Belle notices and adds a crown to the bird, drawn in chalk. "He's the king of the sky," she declares. The name sticks. Soon others start adding things to the wall. A pressed flower, a ribbon, a poem. The message becomes a kind of shrine not to death, but to what came after. It becomes your memory wall, a collective act of defiance against forgetting. You visit the old gravefield sometimes, not to grieve, exactly, but to sit, to acknowledge. You bring flowers. So does someone else. You never see them. but the petals are always fresh. One day, while repairing a fence, you look up and realize the hills are green again. Not the dull gray-green of survival, but the lush, stubborn color of spring. Bees buzz past. The dog chases something invisible and loses. The sky is so blue, it almost hurts your eyes. You let the hammer fall from your hand. You stand there, just breathing. And you whisper to no one in particular, "We made it." Then, after a long pause, you add, somehow, and keep walking. The day begins with smoke, but not the bad kind. This time, it's from a cook fire, a real one. Someone is roasting onions and garlic out in the open. And for the first time in what feels like forever, the air smells like food, not fear. You follow your nose through winding paths and find a small group gathered around a bubbling pot. They wave you over. You're handed a bowl before you even ask. It's stew. Not remarkable, but hot and full of turnip, barley, and something that might be meat. You don't ask. You don't care. You savor every bite. Someone tells a joke. It's terrible. Everyone laughs anyway. There are more children in the square now, running, chasing, giggling, throwing small stones at each other's feet. Not fighting, just playing. One girl wears a crown of dandelions. Another carries a stick she insists is a magic sword. You nod solemnly when she proclaims herself protector of the realm. Little Belle joins them. She's found a wooden spoon and immediately names it Sir Smackalot. You smile. It's the first time she's played without you nearby. The bakery finally reopens. It's run by the tanner's niece, who swears she has no baking experience but learned how to burn bread evenly. The place smells like ash and molasses. You buy 3 rolls anyway. They're terrible. You eat them all. The blacksmith's forge glows again too. He lost a finger during the worst of the sickness. No one knows how, and he won't say, but he's managed to rig a set of tongs that lets him work one-handed. You watch as he shapes a horseshoe, with the ease of someone who's chosen not to give up. Historians often credit the Black Death with accelerating labor rights. Less workers meant more bargaining power. Wages rose, serfdom cracked. But to you, it's not about contracts or laws. It's about watching a man hammer out iron with fewer fingers than before. Because something in him refused to stop. The day feels long in the best way. You walk the market. You trade for soap. Real soap. Not lie and regret. You offer a carved spoon in exchange, and the vendor beams. "Best deal I've made in weeks," he says. You're not sure if he's joking. Later, you help patch a roof with tar and scrap wood. You fall through it once, to raucous applause from the kids below. You bow dramatically and declare, "I meant to do that." They cheer like you're some kind of hero. You're not, but sometimes pretending is enough. There's music in the evening, real music, this time. Not just a single lute played badly, but a group of instruments, clashing in a way that's chaotic but joyful. A drum, 2 flutes, something that might be a bagpipe. People dance. Some well, some terribly. No one cares. The joy is louder than the clumsiness. You dance, to dot your feet ache. Your knees protest, but you laugh so hard you nearly collapse. You spin until the world blurs and someone catches you, grinning. That night, the stars seem closer. You lie on your back in the grass. Little Belle beside you. She counts the stars aloud, makes up names for them. That one's Pickle. That one's Grandpa Sleepy. That one's Sir Barkalot, like the dog. The dog snorts in his sleep, as if to agree. You point out the constellations you remember, the Hunter, the Crown, the 3 sisters. But Little Belle likes hers better. You decide hers are canon now. Then comes the most unexpected sound of all. A bell. Not the mournful death bell. Not the warning clang from months ago. A high, cheerful chime, ringing from the tower. Old Thomas must have relented or been tricked, bribed, or blackmailed. Either way, the sound is clear and sweet. People pause just for a moment, and they listen. You do. 2. The chime cuts through the dark like a promise. The next morning, you pass the cemetery again. Someone's cleaned it up. The grass is trimmed. A few stones have been etched with names, shaky handwriting, but legible. One reads, "She made the best soup." Another, "We didn't forget you." You kneel before one of the unmarked graves and place a small stone on it, not because you knew the person, just because someone should. Later, the mayor, yes, you have won again, holds a meeting. He stands on a crate and declares, "We need to name the place." People shout ideas: New Hope, Bell's Crossing, Turnip Town. Definitely not plagued. Someone suggests here. Just here. It gets a few laughs, and a few quiet nods. The name isn't decided, but the debate alone feels like progress. You end the day by your garden. It's growing. Real vegetables now. Beans, radishes. Maybe a squash if the dog doesn't dig it up again. You run your fingers through the soil. It's warm. Little Belle joins you. She holds up a tiny sprout and says, "This one's mine." You name it Pickle. 2. In honor of her constellation. She seems pleased. The sky fades slowly. Not into dread, not into fear, but into rest. You feel something loosen in your chest. Hope, not loud, not flashy, just quiet and stubborn, like a root pressing through stone. By now, you've lost count of the weeks. Not because you aren't trying. Your charcoal tally marks still line the old wooden beam, because time has shifted. It no longer ticks in fear-laced increments. It flows, one day into the next. Like water easing over stone. It no longer counts how long since the last death. It measures how long the bread's been rising, how tall the onions have grown, whether it's warm enough to sleep with the window cracked open. You wake to birdsong, and the steady rhythm of the dog's tail thumping against the floor. Little Belle is already outside. She's taken it upon herself to become the village's unofficial greeter. Every time a new traveler arrives, be they peddler, orphan, or sunburnt wanderer, she marches up with her wooden spoon, Sir Smackalot, and says, name, purpose, and favorite fruit. It's wildly effective. You've started carving again. Nothing fancy, spoons mostly. Sometimes a flower. Once, a near-recognizable chicken. The repetitive motion soothes something deep inside. The shavings curl away like dead skin, and you begin to think there's poetry in it. You hand out your creations as gifts. People start trading for them. Before you know it, you're the town's carver. Whether you asked for the title or not. That's how it goes now. Jobs form. Not by appointment, but by necessity. Need a weaver. Whoever has the best knot-tying fingers gets the gig. Need a healer? The one who kept their grandmother alive with a mint poultice becomes doctor-ish. You'd be amazed how well that system works when everyone's too tired to argue and too grateful to complain. Historians love to talk about social restructuring in post-plague. Europe, how the collapse of feudalism gave rise to the middle class. But the truth on the ground was simpler. The world shattered, and people stitched it back together, with whatever thread they could find. The town square is lively now. You never thought you'd describe it that way again, but it is. Children run, with ribbons. There's a small patch of musicians who play on Wednesdays. No one asked them to. They just started showing up. A stray cat named Lord Biscuits has taken up residence near the fountain and bites exactly one person per week. Like it's part of a sacred ritual. There's even talk of a festival. You're there when someone suggests it. Like the old harvest fair, a man says, cautiously. Music, food, maybe a play. Someone else adds, a wheel of cheese, if anyone remembers how to make one. A third says, let's not do the fire breather again. That was chaotic. They all look at you, not because you're in charge, but because you're still here. You nod. Let's make something worth remembering. Preparations begin the next morning. People bring out scraps of cloth, hang them on lines, string herbs across doorways, paint signs with chalk and dreams. You find yourself helping build a stage 3 wobbly planks and 2 barrels, but it stands. The day arrives, and it's beautiful. The air is warm. The sky is a friendly blue, dotted with clouds shaped like sheep or puddings, depending on who you ask. The music is uneven. The food is oddly spiced. The games are bizarre. One involves shouting compliments at a goat. But none of that matters, because people are laughing freely. whole-bellied, tear-streaked laughter that makes the trees seem to lean in closer just to listen. Little Belle performs a song she made up on the spot. The lyrics include, "I have a stick. My stick is brave. I hit a rat. It went in a cave." You applaud like it's an opera. Someone passes around mead. Someone else hands out painted rocks. You are given a flower crown by a child who says, "You're the oldest person here, so you get two." You don't correct her. Even the sky seems to participate, turning golden as evening falls, as if it too is relieved to see you all still breathing. The fire is lit at sunset, not a funeral. Pyre, a bonfire. People gather close, passing loaves and stories and songs like sacred relics. A traveler begins telling tales from distant towns. One, where a cat was elected mayor during the plague. Another, where they only survive by drinking nothing but beet juice. You're not sure which is more horrifying. You share your own story. Just a piece of it. How you dug graves with strangers. How a child showed up on your doorstep. How you learned to make stew from roots and regret. No one interrupts, because now, everyone has a story like that. At some point in the night, you step away, just to breathe, just to feel it. You stand at the edge of the field, where the stars spread, like seeds over the dark sky. You hear distant music, the rhythm of drums and clapping. The rise and fall of a flute, off-key, but beautiful. The dog finds you, nuzzles your hand. Little Belle trails behind, barefoot and blinking. "It's loud," she says. You scoop her up. She rests her head on your shoulder like she used to. You all stand together, watching the night deepen. No monsters, no bells tolling. Doom, just quiet, and the growing realization that, against all odds, you are still here, alive, changed, but here. Section 15. There's a moment, just before dawn, when the world holds its breath. The sky is still deep blue, but the stars are fading, and the cold has not yet lifted. That's when you step outside, wrapped in a blanket and quiet. The air is so still you can hear the soft puff of the dog's breath behind you. And somewhere far off, the faint clatter of someone stirring, maybe a baker, maybe a restless soul like you. You like this hour. It's the one that feels most honest. The fire from last night's festival has burned down to embers. Bits of charred wood still glow in the center of the square. Someone left their shoes nearby, like a forgotten offering. Little Belle's crown of dandelions sits perfectly intact on a bench, as if waiting for her return. You sit down beside it, and let the silence wrap around you. This isn't peace. Exactly, it's something sturdier. Something earned. You hear the creak of a cartwheel before you see it's someone delivering flour. You nod at each other without speaking. That's another thing that's changed. Silence between people isn't awkward anymore. It's respectful. Grief taught you that sometimes the best thing you can say is nothing at all. There's a grave out past the edge of town. No name, just a marker with a carved circle. You placed it there months ago, when you didn't know what else to do. Today, you visit it with fresh herbs from the garden. You sit beside it, and talk not to the person, not even to yourself, really, just to the memory. You say thank you, and sorry, and then, nothing more. Later, Little Belle drags you to the field. It's blooming now. Wildflowers in yellows, blues, and soft purples spread out like spilled paint. She runs ahead, arms wide, pretending to fly. The dog bounds after her, tail wagging wildly. You walk behind, slowly, steady. The grass brushes your legs. The sky is cloudless. This was once a place of death. Now it hums with life. Historians still argue whether the Black Death ended the medieval world, or merely cracked it open. Some say it hastened the end of feudalism, empowered workers, spurred invention. Others claim it left people so traumatized, they clung harder to superstition and control. The truth, you suspect, lies somewhere in between. Because yes, everything changed, but so did you. You're not who you were before. None of you are. But that doesn't mean you're broken, just different. Stronger in odd places, softer in others. That afternoon, the children build a little shrine. Not to the dead, this time, but to the town itself. They gather bits of pottery, Flower petals, pebbles they swear are magical, and a ribbon someone saved from before. They place them in a circle, with Lord Biscuits the cat curled in the center, like a purring deity. You're asked to bless it. You have no idea how to do that. So you kneel, smile, and say, "May this town always have laughter, warm bread, and just enough chaos to keep things interesting." It is, somehow, perfect. As night falls, you gather once more in the square. Not for a festival, just to be together. There's no plan, no speeches, no announcements, just people alive, sharing food, passing flasks, swapping stories that no longer feel like confessions. You close your eyes and listen. There's a fire crackling nearby. Someone's tuning a lute. Little Belle is humming something without melody or structure. But it fits the night. The world has not gone back to what it was. It never will. And maybe that's the point. Maybe you don't rebuild what was lost. Maybe you plant something new in its place. And now, as the fire dims and the sounds of the town settle into a low, comfortable hush, you let your body sink a little deeper into rest. You've walked long roads. You've stood at too many doors marked in sorrow. And you've felt the world shift beneath your feet more than once. But here, in this quiet corner of history, you've also found something else: resilience, tucked between moments of silence, kindness, blooming like weeds in broken places, and hope, not as a grand light in the dark, but as a steady little ember, never quite going out. The world you've journeyed through wasn't heroic, or glamorous, or even fair, but it was real, full of people trying, failing, laughing anyway, singing badly, dancing offbeat, offering half a loaf when that was all they had. And somehow, in all that quiet humanity, something beautiful was rebuilt. Let your breath slow now. Let the images of wildflower fields and firelit faces drift like smoke into the back of your thoughts. You've survived the plague. You've watched a town come back to life. And you've remembered what it feels like to laugh again. There's no need to hold it all tonight. The stars are still above you. The garden is still growing. And somewhere nearby, someone just started humming a lullaby. You almost forgot. Rest now. You're safe. You're home.